We're here to educate and empower patients to make choices that are best for them. We're also here to decrease stigma on what it means to feel good and be high, hence the H for hope, I for inspiration, G for growth, and H for healing. The Green Nurse is a holistic cannabis nurse that teaches on the endocannabinoid system and the safe utilization of cannabis and other progressive tools to help people reach a better quality of life.
I was cannabis agnostic for many, many years. And you know, the more research I did, the more I discovered that cannabis is this amazing medicine.
I was told that I had a 4-stage pancreatic cancer. The doctor really told me you couldn't do anything else. He gave me her name, and she called me, and she came to my house. She started giving me cannabis. My oncologist was puzzled because he couldn't find the cancer anymore.
All of the learning that we get comes from the Green Nurses group, comes from their support, comes from their guidance. I trust everything that she says.
Simply meet people where they're at. The plant doesn't, stress to grow, so we don't stress to share it. We're healing people.
Cannabis has been used as a medicine for tens upon thousands of years. Here's the big message. Cannabis needs to be federally legal. We need to have laws that are the same across all 50 states that allow access to anyone and everyone who wants to utilize this powerful medicine.
Hope, inspiration, growth, and healing. This is what the plant brings to so many patients that we take care of. And we're really, really excited to be able to share with you this evening. Therapeutic use of cannabis and safe consumption for recreational, medical, and wellness. Elizabeth Mack and Sherry Mack. And here we go. Have you ever heard that cannabis saved my life? Cannabis gave me my life back. Cannabis is giving me a better day. Cannabis has improved the quality of my life. Cannabis is helping me to live my best life. The therapeutic use of cannabis brings that high, that hope and inspiration for growth and healing across all 5 domains of health: spiritual, physical, emotional, mental, and social. The therapeutic use of cannabis has been defined by the American Cannabis Nurses Association as the use of cannabis products specifically for medicinal, wellness, and healing purposes. And that looks different for each patient. And this is a picture of me jumping out of a plane after coming off of 18 pharmaceuticals. So my name is Sherry Mack. I'm a registered nurse. I'm a cannabis nurse, cannabis patient, advocate, activist, and a very passionate podcaster here to change the paradigm of healthcare. I've been a nurse for 35 years, 25 years in the conventional system, working with pediatrics to geriatrics to critical care, home care, hospice, home infusion. I've done a lot in my nursing career. Like many nurses who started off in the cannabis arena, I found cannabis because I ended up being, I was a patient on the other side of the bed. I was sick and suffering and dying, and cannabis saved my life. Hemp helped me to heal without the high. And now I am grateful to have a second chance at life, to be Chief Nursing Officer of Holistic Caring in the Green Nurse and Bloom Hemp with my partner, Elizabeth Mack.
Well, thank you. So yeah, I'm Elizabeth, and I also am a nurse since 1987. Got my MBA in Healthcare Administration in 96. Spent about 20 years in insurance companies in operations and sales. And I too found cannabis. I crashed my bicycle, got hurt, and CBD helped me repair my body and get rid of some of the inflammation so that I could work my shoulder again, because I crashed this and my knees, etc. And CBD gave me my life back in many ways. And I didn't want to be taking the Motrin and the Flexeril every day, and this is so much of a better option. And so I said, the thing is, people are making great medicines, people are selling these medicines, but nobody interprets how to use cannabis as a medicine therapeutically for patients. And that's what I said I wanted to do. So I put my nursing hat back on, came out of retirement, and said, this is what I'm going to do. And I founded Holistic Caring and did a lot of good things. Wrote a book, Cannabis for Health. You can get one tonight at a discount. And But really, once I healed myself, I knew I needed to help others, right? And that's the whole thing. That's why we're here. and I'm serving on the board of CVCAN, the Coachella Valley Cannabis Alliance Network, and we're very proud to have lots of educational events just to come, as well as other networking events as well. So, why am I here? Why are we here? Why are nurses, all of us nurses, we are the game changers, right? I like to say I have a dream, and here's the future. Nurses are the game changers for dispensaries to add the clinical care that we need for patients in the dispensaries, right? Dispensaries will eventually have one-on-one and small group education rooms where we can go and teach and talk about how to practicalize these medications and to have high quality tested medicinal formulations. And you can see many of those offerings here tonight. Healthcare companies are going to start saying, how do we use this, right? And how do we have data sharing for outcomes and pharmaceutical reductions and cost savings over traditional care, because that's what they're starting to care about. How can we do this cheaper and help people? And then disease management. These are, when patients have high medical needs, there are disease management wings in the health plans. And nurses that are working there need to start interfacing with cannabis nurses and really say how to bring this into the future where cannabis care and healthcare blend. And then insurance companies will eventually start paying for it. And we're all waiting for that day, because right now it's still all out of pocket, right? But eventually we'll have HSAs that are going to be able to be used. And some people have HSA cards now, and you can use those at CBD shops. And then cashless payment systems, digital ordering and tracking, that's all to come. And finally, medical and nursing schools will start teaching this as a first-line therapy instead of a last-ditch resort. Many patients come to us. They've tried everything, right? And they're like, I'm really, really sick. I've got autoimmune conditions. I've got cancer. And I need this to work for me. And that's where we go to work. But eventually, doctors and nurses are going to know this. But right now, only about 13% of medical schools in America teach anything about the endocannabinoid system. You're going to learn more than they do. Okay, so this is a little bit of a timeline of cannabis history, right? Cannabis has been used as a medicine for about 10,000 years in first recorded history in China and the Middle East, etc. But it's been used in pockets all over the world. But for Americans, in 1854, cannabis was first put in our dispensatories. So that's our list of pharmaceutical drugs. And if you look, you'll see some of the big Park Davis, Bristol Myers Squibb, Eli Lilly, were carrying the extracts. So Ohana's got bottles of tincture there, same sort of thing, where cannabis extract was in the bottle. But in 1937, something happened called the Marijuana Tax Act, which basically taxed it out of existence, and it was prohibited. So alcohol came off prohibition, and then they're like, let's take all of these resources and prohibit cannabis instead. And then they called it marijuana, and it was all racially motivated, and that's how we lost it originally. In 1970, Richard Nixon wanted to do something about the hippies that were protesting the Vietnam War, and he couldn't just jail them for protesting, but because they wanted to smoke pot, he could jail them for that. So that's how it became a Schedule 1. Schedule 1 means that there's no medical benefits, it's highly addictive, dangerous, and abusive, and that you should never use it because even under safe clinical supervision, it's too dangerous. And that's where cannabis still lies. Can you believe it? Yeah. It's a joke. But anyway, California brought it back. 1996, we passed Prop 215, and that gave us the ability to use medical cannabis with a doctor's recommendation. And then in 2024, fast forward to today, we have 38 medical states and 24 adult use states. So basically, half of our country has over-the-counter adult use states, and people can just go in and buy it over the counter like you do here. In Palm Springs. And this is what's exciting. So when I talked about on my video, we're going to have something called rescheduling, where it's going to come out of Schedule 1, and the Health and Human Services, so Joe Biden's Department of Health, is now saying, along with the FDA, to the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Agency that polices this, saying reschedule cannabis. It has therapeutic benefits. It is effective for many, many people. And they're going to put it in Schedule 3 from what we hear. Of course, the DEA can do whatever they want. They haven't said anything yet. But Schedule 3 is where marinol and ketamine and steroids lie. And marinol is synthetic THC. So that's kind of how they're thinking about this. And so the DA is going to announce soon, and descheduling is preferred. Everybody in this room mostly wants descheduling, where it's completely removed from the Controlled Substance Act. And we'll see, but any progress is going to help, because then these doctors and nurses across the board will be able to start learning, and the research is accelerating. But up until now, research has only been in a couple of pocket countries like Israel, Australia, Spain, but it's going to start coming fast and furious once this happens.
And I'm so excited. I'm so excited because nursing is on board finally. So the American Nurses Association, which represents 5 million nurses, has supported providing safe access to therapeutic cannabis and related cannabinoids for over 20 years. So we were very, very excited in September 27th of 2023 when we found out that the American Nurses Association officially recognizes cannabis nursing as a specialty practice, meaning that nurses are going to be able to sit and take a board-certified exam to get that specialty recognition. Very excited about that. The other thing that's very interesting too, as we talk about legality, I don't know if you all knew this, but the United States government had a patent on cannabinoids, patent number 6630507. Cannabinoids is antioxidants and neuroprotectants. This was 21 years ago. Cannabinoids are found to protect cells from damage and decay following ischemic insults, such as stroke and trauma. Cannabinoids may hold therapeutic potential to treat neurodegenerative diseases, such as Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, and dementia. This is very powerful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, most people don't know the government had a patent on cannabis. Did anybody know that before tonight? Yeah.
6630507.
21 years ago they filed that. And these two guys, Paul Picard and George Kunos, a couple of my heroes, they're physician scientists working at the NIH to discover what the therapeutic potential is. And when they figured this out, they said, wow, modulating the endocannabinoid system, which we'll talk about, will have therapeutic potential in all diseases. Because if you think about this, this is a close-up of a neuron. Think about cell A sending messages to cell B, and what happens normally is that it's one way. But what the endocannabinoid system does is provide the feedback. So say something is flowing too fast. Don't you want to say, hey, turn that down a little bit? That's exactly what the endocannabinoid system does. It's like the brakes for the nervous system, the brakes for the immune system when we're making too much inflammation and we're running hot and joints are nice and red and hot and swollen. You need to turn that inflammation down. Well, how do you do it? You need to get the signals going right again. And what happens is we're not making our cannabinoids. But when we talk about how this works throughout the entire body, did anybody ever think about cannabis as snake oil? Some people have heard that, right? CBD works for everything. Please mute phones. CBD works for everything because it activates this system. And it goes through the brain and the central nervous system, the neuromuscular system, the immune system, the digestive system, etc. And all of these therapeutic compounds from the cannabis plant can actually plug into the receptors in our body. And that is the most amazing thing that most people will have. It blows your mind. What do you mean I'm hardwired for the plant? Well, this is pharmacological actions of just some of the non-psychotropic cannabinoids. And you'll notice THC is not even needed. There are so many different compounds in this plant, about 1,500 of them. And whether you're using it for cancer, seizure disorders, psychosis, schizophrenia, bone stimulant. You break your leg, you need to repair it, fracture it, you need good CBD and CBG. Anti-proliferative, making sure cancer cells don't spread. Digestion, immunosuppression, etc., right? And of course, pain, sleep, anxiety, etc. And so we're only scratching the surface of this, and that's what we're doing as clinicians to really help move the needle on the research.
The cannabis plant, nature's pharmacy for over 10,000 years. Nature's nurse, I like to say, with over 1,500 natural compounds in the plant, including cannabinoids, terpenes, flavonoids, cannaflavins, which are specific to cannabis only, omega-3s, biologically active compounds that have a therapeutic response within the body. So the medicine is in the trichomes of the plant, the little sticky resinous glands that get extracted. So plants are influenced by strain genetics, soil, climate, and cultivation. My favorite word is pleiotropic. I want you to think of pleiotropic as a very warm blanket. So pleiotropic means cannabis affects many physiologies in the body simultaneously at the exact same time. So the phytocannabinoids in the plant activate the endocannabinoid system. The phytocannabinoids mimic the endocannabinoids that we make in our body, making it ideal for wellness and illness management. We have an endocannabinoid system not because of the cannabis plant, but because we make molecules in our body very similar to the plant. And then here is an amazing diagram of that. Just blows me away when I learned this. So 3 types of cannabinoids. Endocannabinoids we make in our body internally, anandamide and 2-AG. Phytocannabinoids are made by the cannabis plant and the hemp plant. THC, CBD, CBG, CBN, THCV, CBDA, CBGA, just to name a few. And then the synthetic cannabinoids is what the pharmaceutical company makes. Marinol is synthetic THC, Epidiolex is 99% purified CBD, and Sativex is equivalent of half CBD, half THC. So what's important to notice is that the THC molecule is very, very similar to our own anandamide molecule that we make. Anandamide and THC, the structures are very similar, and this allows for THC to mimic the anandamide molecule by connecting to the nerve cell in its place. So by activating receptors on all cell membranes, cannabinoids restore balance at a cellular level, allowing downstream healing to multiple different systems at the same time. The most interesting thing is the phytocannabinoids from the plant are 10 times stronger than the endocannabinoids that we make, and that's in particular with THC and anandamide.
So when we talk about a drug, we think about pharmaceutical drugs, right? We think about recreational substances, and we think about supplements. And those are the 3 main categories that we have. Recreational substances are taken for enjoyment and leisure. We want to feel good and relax and stimulate our brain in a different way. And analgesic stimulants, depressants, psychedelics, which is the next great wave. Generally, these things are bought at dispensaries, sometimes the street or the black market. And they can also be prescribed drugs that are purposefully abused. Pharmaceutical drugs are any substance that is to cure or prevent or diagnose or treat conditions, right? And generally, that is the FDA approved drugs. There are 5 schedules. And again, cannabis is in Schedule 1. And then there's the dietary supplements, which are the nutraceuticals, and CBD as a botanical supplement belongs there. So cannabis is a recreational drug. Cannabis is a pharmaceutical drug. Cannabis is a dietary supplement. And it is wellness. And this is really where we talk about, in this room and these products that you're going to see tonight, mood enhancement, spiritual enhancement. You smoke a joint, you pray, you meditate, you feel good, you do yoga. Exercise recovery, once you work out. In fact, exercise is how you're going to stimulate more anandamide. Ananda is Sanskrit for bliss, and amide is a compound. Metabolism, immune, neurological, pain, sleep, and slowing down aging. Because when you work better, when your systems are all in tune and in sync, then you start feeling better. And when we talk about drugs, how many know about the opioid crisis, right? We all know about that. They hid it from us for years, and the doctors were basically told, go ahead and prescribe OxyContin, it's not addictive. Yeah. So we still have 91 overdoses every single day. That's about 16 per minute on opiates. And about 11 people die every 11 minutes. Somebody fatally overdoses on any pharmaceutical drugs, right? And this is really the travesty. And guess what? How many people have ever died from cannabis? Zero. Because there are no cannabinoid receptors in the brainstem that controls our respiration and heart. And this is what people just don't know.
Oh, here's a big slide, and I know this is really heavy, but I want you all to see that the research is there, the science is there. I use CannaKeys a lot. We use a lot of times when we're doing research and we're working with patients and we're presenting, we like to get the most up to date. But CBD is a multi-targeted molecule that binds with numerous cell receptors throughout the body, thus it directly and indirectly initiates complex biological processes. And what's really important to note is that in June of 2018, the FDA approved Epidiolex. I'm sure you all heard of Charlotte Figi, the story. If not, she was a little Charlotte's Web. Charlotte's Web was named after Charlotte Figi, who was a little girl who had Dravet syndrome, and that's an epileptic disorder. And she had over 300 seizures a week. That's one every 30 minutes. And so Charlotte's Web was a CBD botanical that actually helped reduce her seizures to one every month. Very powerful stuff. And then here's another slide here that shows that there is clinical evidence for CBD using these conditions. And these are live links. So when I click on each of these opens up to studies. And we're seeing patients all the time. The primary reason we see patients that come to us, they come to us for pain, they come to us for inflammation, they come for us with autoimmune conditions, cancer, depression, anxiety, and sleep disorders. And dementia. Absolutely, yeah. A lot of older folks with dementia.
Okay, and THC.
I'm losing my mic. Okay, so THC in particular also is a multi-targeted molecule that binds with numerous cell receptors throughout the body. We have cannabinoids, CB1 and CB2 receptors. Okay, so THC is a multi-targeted molecule that binds with numerous cell receptors throughout the body. We have cannabinoid 1 and cannabinoid 2 receptors on all of the cell surfaces of all of our organ systems. I want you guys to think of that. That's pretty impressive, right? I think we have 12 organ systems: cardiovascular, respiratory, GI, reproductive, skin. All of our systems in our body have cannabinoid receptors that know how to nuance this plant. Very, very powerful. And again, there is clinical evidence for using THC for all of these different conditions. And there's a fine balance between using CBD and THC. CBD activates CB1 and CB2 receptors, has a downstream effect working on multiple different systems at the same time. And then we like to use CBD because CBD can enhance the efficacy of THC. CBD can actually dial down psychoactivity without taking away the medicinal effect.
So why supplement, right? So if you look at this page or this page, I bet everybody in this room has something on that list, right? Yeah. Okay. So and the goal of this is, how do we supplement? Anybody ever take vitamin D if you're not making enough vitamin D and you want to bring your body back up to balance? That's exactly what this is. So think about it like you're taking a vitamin D supplement, except it's cannabinoids. So why do we not make it? When we age, our endocannabinoid tone, or how many we have to accomplish our biological balancing, is really high when we're about 25, and then it starts to trail off, kind of like with hair. But basically, our lifestyle is also hurting us with eating fast food, poor diets, not exercising, becoming obese, stress, not sleeping, smoking, alcohol, polypharmacy, nutrient depletion, lack of touch, social, laughter, and lack of phytocannabinoids. Back in 1937, when the Marijuana Tax Act took cannabis out of existence, they used to graze animals on it, and CBD, cannabinoids, hemp oil, was in the feed supply. And our animals were grazed on that, and we then would eat it. And by the time we got to 1939, and we weren't getting cannabinoids anymore, we started to get autism, neurodegenerative diseases, Parkinson's, MS. All kinds of things started to happen because we weren't eating hemp like we needed to. And so a lot of people, it's like, how do I support this system naturally without cannabis, right? And if you look at food, whole foods, nutrient-dense foods is the number one way. And think about how we make endocannabinoids as healthy fatty acids. So you want to eat good, healthy fats. That's your number one goal. Supplements, exercise, motion is the lotion, not just for the joints, but for the whole system. Mind-body medicines, etc. Getting good sleep, acupuncture, chiropractor, good social connections, and then cannabis and hemp products. And many patients come to us, I've tried all of these, but they don't work. And I was one of them. And then you throw in cannabis and hemp, and all of a sudden the other things start working. And that's really, it's so wonderful to work with patients and to see that. And what is health, right? So we want to talk about health because it's not just about, do we have a disease or are we about to die? That's not health. This is a McKinsey report, and physical, mental, social, and spiritual are the 4 main domains of health. So how are you feeling? How are you moving? How are you sleeping? How are your senses? Mental, what's your stamina like? What is your creativity, your resilience, your coping? Social, how are you maintaining your connections with other people? And empathy and self-awareness. Spiritual, what's your meaning and purpose gauges and hopefulness? And this is what we want to start with, because when we think about the 4 pillars of health, nutrition, rest, connection, and movement, my goal as a clinician in cannabis is how do I use cannabinoids to help you do those things? How do I help you move? How do I help you pray better? How do I help you relax and show up more in life? And that's what our goal is.
All right, so therapeutic use of cannabis. Again, we have our endocannabinoid system, but you hear patients say, I can relax, I can move better, I don't hurt, I can eat, right? A balanced body equals a better functioning in all domains of life, that biopsychosocial, spiritual. Eat, sleep, relax, forget, protect is a term coined by Vincent DiMarzo, and it's about homeostasis or balance amongst all of our body systems. So medical, wellness, recreational use of cannabis, it's all medical. When we're taking something into our body and there's a physiological response, it acts as medicine. And it also depends upon the product choices, dosing, THC potency. And when I'm working with, people say, oh, is it medical, is it recreational? And I'm like, no, this is all about the use and misuse of cannabis. You're either using cannabis appropriately or you're not. It's as simple as that, right? And negative effects are generally from using too much THC. We advise patients and clients and people that are new to cannabis not to mix cannabis with other substances, not to use cannabis excessively to prevent tolerance. We're going to start low and go slow, and we'll talk about those nuances in a few minutes. And recreational and adult use is not misuse. We are truly trying to get away from that stigma because euphoria is not a crime. Dysphoria is a crime. People not feeling good is a crime, right? It's okay to feel good, and we need to teach people how to understand and read their smart body to use this plant effectively. Every variable in your life, everything that we do or don't do in our lives, contributes to the therapeutic use and the experienced effects of cannabis. And safe consumption. We need to know, it's very, very important. We know adult use, medical use is important for everyone to know the legal status of cannabis in your jurisdiction, the age restrictions, and in respecting social norms. The public and health safety concerns include not operating machinery or driving when you're using high THC products. THC can impair cognitive function and coordination, so knowing the product contents, the THC potency, looking at lab results, knowing your body and how it works, knowing your tolerance level, and knowing that you are different than your friend. Just because Susie Q can do a dab doesn't mean that you can, right? And knowing your workplace rules for THC consumption and drug testing. And as always, keep out of the reach of children and pets, right?
Okay, and so we all react differently to cannabis because we all have an endocannabinoid system, and it differs from person to person. So my endocannabinoid system needs certain things to balance my body because it's my body. Nicole's is very different. It's got to balance her body. So when we take even the same product, it's going to affect us differently. And that's what I want you guys to really realize. And then as far as, how is this going to play in the body? Well, it depends. How are you used to intoxicating substances? How are you used to other drugs and alcohol? What routes are you using? We're going to talk about, different kinds of cannabinoids and the different kinds of routes that are available. And really what you want to do is start with CBD. For all people that are just experimenting with this, CBD is a good way to start, and then you fold in more and more THC as you get used to it. You're going to want to journal to track your results, record what works for you, track your consumption to meet the desired health goals, and also it's good to journal anyway so that you can remember what works for you, what you want to go back to the dispensary or to a different dispensary and say, do you have this? This is what I'm looking for, because more and more people are saying, I want to use something specifically for my own needs. And when we're talking about medicine, we want to talk about microdosing. The endocannabinoid system, if we go back to that slide with the cells, that communication is happening constantly in microseconds all over your body in response to stress. So if there's something that is running hot at a certain intersection in your body, that is going to say, hey, I need attention. The endocannabinoids will synthesize, they'll deliver the punch to the receptor, and then you're going to feel better, right? So if we're supplementing, you're going to need to keep some of these cannabinoids in your bloodstream all the time. So we talk about a little bit at breakfast, a little bit at lunch, a little at dinner, a little at bedtime, and they might be different, right? CBD for the day, THC and 1-to-1 for the evening, which and the 1-to-1 is the therapeutic workhorse to me. When I have patients that have high degrees of pain, we start with CBD oil in the day and then just a couple of drops of a 1-to-1. That is going to be your perfect starting point. And then stacking products. It's not just one. When you say, what do I start with? It could be a topical. That's where I started when I got introduced to this. But then it was a tincture, then it was oils, then it was gummies and inhalation. But the products all work very differently. We have pharmacokinetics, how the body metabolizes these things. And the way that a tincture or a gummy metabolizes is very different than having inhalation, right? You take a puff, you feel it immediately. You take a gummy, you feel it in an hour.
Or two.
Things are very different. And then when we talk about pharmaceuticals, one of the rules that I always tell people is, like, if it has a grapefruit rule, your drugs, you need to be really cautious, because we're talking about enzyme inhibition, and the body is like a choo-choo train, right? Everything has to go through the liver and then out. And so that's the same thing. And if CBD and THC are going through with your pharmaceuticals, sometimes the enzymes compete, and the drugs can then either become made more strong or made weaker. And we really need to pull that into place. So if you take your medicines and then you have your pharmaceutical, or take your medicines first and then your cannabinoid supplements about an hour later, that's a good way to go.
Oh boy, now we're gonna open up Pandora's box. Ooh, we've got all kinds of goodies here, right? So shopping for products, there's many different choices, many different choices, and I haven't even listed them all here. But we're gonna start off with topicals, right? So topicals, lotions, creams, balms, salves, roll-ons. I just so happen to have a CBD muscle freeze right here, 1,000 milligrams. And the thing that's great about this is that it doesn't get into the bloodstream, right? It's very good for someone that is new. It works topically as a local anesthetic. There's all different types of products that are out there that can be used in CBD, CBD THC, THC topicals. But the good news is you won't get impaired from these. They don't enter into the bloodstream. It's not gonna provide any psychoactive. Do you have anything to add on topicals, Elizabeth? Okay, great. So tinctures. Tinctures, oils, drops, sublingual under the tongue. We also see strips that patients use in sprays. So sublingual, so this is a tincture, and there's some tinctures back there at some of the dispensary tables that you can all look at that are very good. And so tinctures are applied under the tongue. So they'll draw it up in a dropper, you put it under your tongue, you hold it there for as long as you can, and then you swallow. So you have a vein under your tongue called, it's a sublingual vein, and that's where it gets into your systemic circulation, bypassing the GI tract. When you swallow it, some of it will get metabolized through your GI tract and circulate throughout your systemic circulation. So the onset for tinctures is anywhere between 15 and 30 minutes, and duration can be up to 4 hours. Topicals, same thing. Onset, it can be quick, and the duration can be up to 4 hours as well. What was that? All right, we got edibles. Okay, so we've got some THC edibles here. We've got some CBD edibles here, Pandora's box. Big difference between, you wanna hold this up? Hold a CBD edible and a THC edible. A big difference, and the reason why is because of how it metabolizes in the body. So THC, when you consume it, delta 9 THC, when it converts in the liver, it actually converts to delta 11 THC, hydroxy delta 11, and it increases the potency of it, and it lasts a lot longer. So when we're working with patients for gummies, we teach them specifically at the dispensaries to cut them in quarters, and we're gonna talk about dosing in an upcoming slide. Another type of edible we have is capsules. There's capsules, gummies, candies, and drinks. And the onset can be anywhere from 30 minutes. I've seen some patients up to 90 minutes. I have a story to share with you about my mother on an upcoming slide, who ate way too many edibles. But the duration is generally for 4 to 8 hours. And so when people are new using THC edibles in particular, we always like people to have CBD on board because CBD can dial down psychoactivity without taking away the medicinal effect. The other thing we have back there, Ohana Cannabis has an amazing display of patches, is transdermal patches. So transdermal patches provide systemic basal dosing. So you put the patch on and there is a specific ingredient in the patch that actually pushes the medication into your skin and delivers it slow release over time, over 24 hours. So this can be really good for patients as well because they're just getting a little bit dripped in microdose over the 24 hours. And when we're using patches with patients, we use them in a combination with other products as well. And then everyone's favorite, inhalation. So, and inhalation was actually how I started using cannabis, believe it or not. There was a 70-year-old nurse who came to my house with a big joint. Came to my house and said, Sherry, get with the program. She was a nurse. She was a nursing professor at a school. Her father was actually a pharmacist in Boston who carried cannabis formulations in his pharmacy. And so she brought me a joint of her homegrown. She was 70 years old, and she said, Sherry, you're sick, you're suffering, you're dying, you need this. And I was blown away. I inhaled, and literally I did not get high. My pain went from a 10 to a 0. A 10 to a 0. I was on 18 pharmaceuticals, and literally cannabis was what kept me alive and helped me to come off of those pharmaceuticals. So the example of inhalation is joints, blunts, spleefs, bongs, one-hitters, vape pens, dab rigs, dry herb vaporizers. And the onset is very, very quick. When you inhale, you're actually bypassing the gastrointestinal tract. It's actually getting into your lungs and circulating systemically through your bloodstream. One puff is enough. Pause, assess how you feel, and then you can resume. And where to purchase all of these different products. So cannabis CBD and cannabis THC products are purchased at dispensaries. And then there's hemp CBD products that can be purchased online retailers or CBD shops. And this has to do with dosing. So dosing is different for everyone. I've been getting a lot of questions. A lot of people will ask, what should I take for this? What should I take for that? Well, THC and CBD are very, very different because we know that THC can have a psychoactive effect. And so when we're starting using THC products, we really want to start low and go slow. I mean, I've worked as low as 1 milligram with patients, and that's how I work with my mother when I introduced THC to her. So when you're new to THC, we like people to start low and go slow, usually 1 milligram to 2.5 milligrams to try it, have a little bit of CBD on board. CBD, on the other hand, lower dose, anywhere between 10 and 25 milligrams is a good low dose to start. And generally, we don't see side effects. We don't see those adverse effects that we see with THC because it's not impacting those specific brain receptors. And then we want to look at CBD to THC ratio. Some of the dispensaries in the back have amazing product formulations if you haven't checked out their tables. You know, looking at a 1-to-1, a 20-to-1, a 30-to-1, and what we're looking at is CBD to THC. How much CBD is there? How much THC is there? Right? And looking at that ratio, and we like Elizabeth had said, we have found that a 1-to-1 provides the best, most therapeutic across the platform with mild euphoria, not too impairing.
Okay, so greening out. Anybody ever take too much THC? Yeah. We call that a green out. You're not drunk. You're high. You're greened out. But the good thing is you won't die, right? You don't feel very well though, right? You think you're gonna die. You might wish you were gonna die, but it's gonna wear off in about 8 hours, right? Depending on how it plays. But tachycardia is one of the symptoms. You might have a fast heart rate. Dizziness, lightheadedness, you can have temperature changes, hot, cold, that can be annoying. Anxiety, paranoia, it's not just you think the CIA's after you, but you're just anxious, you don't even know why. Probably because you don't feel well. Nausea and vomiting, and rare cases psychosis. And you can manage this overconsumption by taking some CBD. CBD helps THC sort of back out of those receptors in the brain where they can dock and load. And CBD can help undo that, as well as products like Undo. You can drink or eat something with sugar in case your blood sugar's dropped, hydrate with water, suck on lemons and chew peppercorns. That also can remove THC from the receptors. taking a bath, a hot shower, can also help. Going outside, getting some fresh air will help slow down the pulse as well. And then vagal nerve exercises, just massaging your face, massaging your neck, just saying, I'm okay, just taking some deep breath, and all of a sudden you'll start to reset. And it is really good, but the goal is to get back into the relaxation response. So lie down, call a cannabis nurse, and deep breathe. And then this slide, we've already covered some of them, but some of these are taken from our free medical cannabis guide, which you can get over there. But dosing is personal. One size does not fit all. And the dosing goal is to take the lowest amount of cannabinoids to get the best result without impairment. And that's where I say maximize the benefits, minimize the harms. Be smart about this. The other one is start with one symptom at a time and start with 1 or 2 products at a time. This is also good because you want, a topical and a tincture. That's my favorite starting point for most seniors especially. But then cannabis is biphasic. And biphasic means low doses and high doses do different things. That's why dosing matters. That's why we start seniors especially with 2.5 milligrams. And so when you buy that 10 milligram gummy, you can cut it into 4 pieces. And that's your dose. And then take that with some CBD and you'll be just fine. Okay.
Why do patients use cannabis? So this was taken from New Frontier Data survey, and pain is by far the most common condition treated with cannabis, and followed by anxiety and panic attacks. The interesting thing about this slide is 93% of patients said that it helped their condition. And this is a slide on 3 different patients that I want to cover, and these are 3 different patients that we've taken care of. All of these patients had chronic pain issues. All of them had issues with sleep. All of them used cannabis. None of them inhaled. So the first patient is Marta on the left, who you saw in the video earlier. She was sent to me by hospice. She had stage 4 pancreatic cancer, unresectable tumor, failed chemo, failed radiation. She was given 2 weeks to live when the hospice called me, and they just wanted her to have a good death. And so literally when her family went out and did all kinds of shopping, I went to their house, I met with them, and then I just met with her and I said, how do you want to live the rest of your life? This is not about me, this is about you. And she said, I just want to be pain-free for a little bit. I want to have a good night's sleep, and I want to have some time with my family where I can actually communicate with them. And so we started her on CBD in the daytime, 100 milligrams of CBD in the daytime, and in divided doses, and she just did 10 milligrams of THC at bedtime. That was all she did. And literally over the course of 5 months, Marta didn't die. Marta was getting better. And everyone was wondering what happened. And she goes, Sherry, they couldn't find the cancer anymore. And so Marta ended up, this was after 5 months of 100 milligrams of CBD, 10 milligrams of THC. We do not see that with all patients. This was really once in a lifetime, which kind of blew me away. And so Marta ended up using cannabis, and we had to go through we had to really work with Marta to help her to go from death and dying to alive and thriving. The next patient is Sister Suzanne Carroll. Sister Suzanne was an amazing patient. She actually was misdiagnosed with MS, was on multiple pharmaceuticals. She ended up falling, having a stroke, ended up in a coma for 2 weeks, came out of the coma and developed this chronic regional pain syndrome, which is a very, very painful condition. She was on over 200 micrograms of fentanyl. So I'm not sure if you all know fentanyl, but it's a very dangerous drug in the form of a patch. Multiple pharmaceuticals. She had an internal spinal stimulator, neurotransmitter stimulator. She was getting lidocaine infusions. She was sick, suffering. She was in bed for 20 hours out of 24 hours. And she came to me and said, Sherry, I want to get back to the church. And so literally over the course of 2 months, we started using cannabis. We did a combination of CBD, CBG, 1-to-1 in the daytime, higher doses of THC in the evening. Her pain started to get better, and then it was time for her to wean off of her fentanyl. We weaned her off of her fentanyl in about 1.5 years using formulations, and I remember the last time she took off her patch, her fentanyl patch, she goes, I am so nervous that I'm gonna need a lot more. And it was very, very interesting. She didn't need to take any extra doses when she took off that patch. And so Sister Suzanne now is opioid free, living her best life, back to the church. And again, she was just using CBD, THC, topicals, no inhalation. And then the last patient on the right is my mother. My mother was not very happy when she found out that I was using cannabis as medicine. She was very, very plagued with stigma, very Catholic, very Irish, very religious. She blocked me on Facebook. She wrote me out of her will, no lie. But it took Sister Suzanne. So it was Sister Suzanne's statement. Sister Suzanne decided to come onto my podcast because she wanted to preach to the world. She goes, I need to tell everybody about this. This is amazing. And so I literally, at the end of my podcast, I said, Sister Suzanne, with all due respect, this question is for my mother. What would Jesus say about all this cannabis? And Sister Suzanne held up her finger and she said, Sherry, Jesus would say, what the frig did it take you so long to use this God-given plant that I created for you? It would be a sin not to use it. So you better believe I took that clip and I sent it to my mother. My mother, a few weeks later, called me and she says, I'm ready, what's the gateway? And so we literally started my mother off on 2 ingredients, CBD isolate and MCT oil. We mixed them together. I needed her to feel comfortable. And so she started using CBD topically. And then the CBD topically led into her using tinctures. And then she started to use full spectrum, having a little tiny bit of THC in the CBD. And then she was ready for the THC. She goes, I want to try the chocolate. She goes, I'm ready. And I said, just 1 square, Mom. That's it, just 1 square. Don't take any more than 1. And I said, give me a call in the morning. Well, I didn't hear from her in the morning. And I was like, what's going on? So I called her up and I said, Mom, how did it go last night? She goes, well, I didn't listen. I said, what do you mean you didn't listen? She goes, well, I didn't feel it after an hour. So I took another one. And she took 3. So she took 15 milligrams of THC. And I said, are you okay? Did you have it? She goes, well, I really felt it and it was wonderful. And I said, it was wonderful. So what do you mean it was wonderful? She just says, I giggled and I was able to enjoy things that I normally don't enjoy, and things were just a little bit bigger and brighter and more interesting. And then my mother came on the podcast, which was interesting, is her way of forgiving me. She goes, I forgive you and now I need to repent, so I'm going to come on the podcast and share my story. And so she shared her story and I said, Mom, she goes, I feel good and I'm not high. I go, well, Mom, what does it mean to feel good and not be high? She goes, well, the pains become background noise. I laugh a little bit more. I'm not as mean. I'm not as grumpy. I'm sleeping better. And I'm not so depressed about all my medical problems. And I'm not high. I feel good. Hope, inspiration, growth, and healing.
Yeah, exactly. So, this plant's been demonized for numerous reasons, right? And it wasn't just the xenophobia and racism, it's also corporate interests. And when we think about how useful cannabis is, pharmaceutical companies, they wanted their single molecule pharmaceuticals going forward, paper mills, that was, Hearst and those guys, they didn't like cannabis. And so it was really, it's too useful, and you'll see. It's useful to take people off of pharmaceuticals, and we do this all the time in our practice. But basically, 59% of all cannabis consumers have used cannabis as a substitute for over-the-counter drugs or their prescription drugs, mainly NSAIDs and sleep aids. So pain and sleep are the 2 main reasons why people are taking it, and the depression, arthritis, etc. But here's the thing. They view cannabis as medicine as less potential harms and therefore less costly to them. So less costly to their body, less costly to the short and the long-term side effects in the liver, the kidneys, the stomach. All, think about NSAIDs. Does anybody even know that Motrin has a black box warning, which means that it could cause sudden death, a stroke, a GI bleed, etc.? People don't know this, but once they start getting 5-10 pills a day into them, they're like, no more, I can't do this. What else do I have that's natural? And that's what we're doing here. And then cannabis is creating jobs. So we've got over 500,000 new jobs just in America, about 1 million globally, and that's just going to accelerate as well. And the billions are being counted in cash, which is also a problem that we're going to be fixing. And then, did you know that Henry Ford was making hemp cars? This is really cool. As I was researching this, he made a hemp car that was 10 times stronger than steel. And the hemp fuel is also something that is coming. It's still in the research stage, but this biofuels, just like corn, you can make oil, gas out of it. So imagine having a car made of hemp and fueled by hemp. And then, now your house. Hempcrete. So now imagine a house that you could live in that can't be destroyed by a storm. No hurricanes, no tornadoes. When you build a hempcrete house, it literally is almost indestructible. And cannabis is fueling the economy. I don't need to tell our public servants here about the taxes, right? This is huge. Billions and billions and billions of dollars, $4.5 billion just in California has been collected through the cannabis industry and the public offerings. And what they're getting out of this is education, alcohol and drug treatment, veteran services, job training, and reinvestment in the communities that have been decimated by that stupid war on drugs. And then I like to close with a quote by Wayne Dyer. If you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change, right? We need to change the way we look at cannabis. People have stigmatized this plant wrongly for over 100 years. And it's time we bring it back, because what people really need to understand is that it gives us stronger self-care. Body, mind, spirit medicine, relaxation, the ability to sleep better, have better fitness, increase better nutrition, and that's how it's going to work.
Okay, and then we would like to offer you our offerings. So we have a couple of QR codes up at our table, but also up there. If you would want to subscribe to our newsletter, you would get a free 7-page medical cannabis guide downloaded right to your phone, right? So you can do that now. You can also go to the website at any particular time. So if you're not able to grab it now, you can grab one of our cards, 7-page medical cannabis guide. We also have an ecosystem, a network that is also free. So the network is where we house all of our learning management system and all of our programs. So Elizabeth, who wrote this amazing book here, this book became the programs, and the programs is what we teach from. And the programs are for continuing education credits for nurses, but we also have patient programs, so cancer and cannabis, epilepsy and cannabis, mental health and cannabis, autoimmune disorders, chronic pain, et cetera, et cetera. And so the offering as well is if you're interested in purchasing one of those programs, there's a code, CVCAN20 for 20% off, and 20% of the proceeds go to CVCAN for their nonprofit. So we are giving back to CVCAN. Very excited about that. Also, Bloom Hemp CBD. Elizabeth and I are the owners of Bloom Hemp CBD, and what makes us a little bit different is it's USDA organic hemp CBD. We have symptom-targeted formulas that Elizabeth and I have created, as well as one of our doctors who's a functional health doctor, Dr. Pai in New Mexico. He's amazing. Symptom-targeted formulas. We have a free nurse line, free care plans, free network, affiliate wholesale opportunities. Again, we're offering CVCAN20 for 20% off. And those proceeds also go back to CVCAN to support their nonprofit. One of the things that we do offer as well, which is different, is the free care plan, which I love. So the free care plan is you answer a couple of questions on the form. Our nurses get the intake form, and then what we do is we generate a care plan, tips, tricks, hugs, and nugs on the best products to start with for your particular condition and how you might start dosing. And then I finally subscribe to the Green Nurse podcast. We have a 4-time award-winning podcast. I started podcasting in 2018 when the National Council of State Boards of Nursing came out with a call to action that all nurses must have 6 essential areas of knowledge when it comes to cannabis as medicine. So my Green Nurse podcast shares compelling stories of healing. I interview patients, I interview industry professionals to share their compelling story as to what brought them to cannabis. And then Elizabeth and I started doing clinical conversations. And clinical conversations is monthly, where we break down a condition. We talk about how conventional care treats it, what are the limitations, and how cannabinoids can bridge the gap from what conventional care may not provide. And finally, CVCAN is DHS 2023 Nonprofit of the Year, building bridges between community and the cannabis industry. We're gonna go back to Q&A in just a second. Let's just end with this one video, and then we'll go back to Q&A. But this here is a video of me jumping out of a plane. I jumped out of a plane with my daughter, who was just turned 21, and this is me celebrating pharmaceutical free. Flying high.
It's a different definition of high.
It's just a quick, yeah. This is me living my best life. I've always wanted to jump out of an airplane, and when I discovered cannabis and got all of my products and said, if I can figure this out, you can call me the green nurse and I will jump out of a plane someday. And I figured it out, and here I am today to share that message.
So who's got a clinical question? Anybody
Any
want
question?
to have a question?
You skipped over suppositories a few.
Yes, we did. Suppositories, I haven't seen suppositories in dispensaries, but we do teach patients how to make them using oils. So I have used them a lot with cancer patients and a lot with children, because I'm also a pediatric nurse. And so a lot of kids that have cancer use the suppositories.
And women, for PMS, for menopause, etc. Suppositories are definitely something to try.
Yeah.
Inhaling versus vaping in the lungs.
Well, inhaling versus vaping. So smoking versus vaping, right? So if you're smoking a joint, pre-roll, versus a vape, right?
There's
Or
also
vaporizing dry flower, dry herb vaporizer, which is the healthiest. So the dry herb vaporizer, taking cannabis flower, grinding it up, and putting it in one of those little portable vaporizers, or a volcano, a tabletop vaporizer, that is the healthiest way. In fact, there are hospitals in Israel using it like that all the time.
Use the
The volcano.
bag.
Yeah, the volcano. So because it's all about temperatures, right? When you spark that joint, it's combusting. It's very, very hot. When you're vaporizing, it's only about 200 degrees as opposed to 500. So it's better for your lungs, and it's better for the alveoli in the lungs.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I should also just mention in connection with vaping versus combustion, not to crash your party, but as a heavy smoker my whole life, just cigarette smoking and moving to vaping. The difference is combustion. You're burning something that has a residue, secondhand smoke. You can see it on your walls, whatnot. When you vape, it's vaporized. All that's coming out is basically moisture.
You're steaming the plant. So the plant's being steamed, and that vapor is coming up through the device that you're actually inhaling.
So no matter what, vaping is better without question. You can talk to your doctor about it. And sure that you hear about the teens who continuously vape and get the thing. Okay, but they're teenagers, right? That's what they do, right? So they live on the thing. I'm telling you, I moved from cigarettes to vaping just and whatnot. My lungs cleared up almost instantly. Same thing with cannabis. I'm a flower smoker. I vape as much as I flower smoke now. My lungs are clearer, it's healthier, and there's no secondhand smoke issue. So I just wanted to throw that up.
Cool. And then vaporizing oils too, getting the different pens. So temperature control is very, very important because you don't want to burn your lungs. Really, really important.
Yeah, and also you get more terpenes. You get more terpenes with vaping, which some people say you can get better results, better outcomes in better highs, more different high, more nuance, because you're folding in the terpenes. So as we talked about the cannabis plant, we've got cannabinoids, flavonoids, and terpenoids. And the terpenes really drive the indica versus sativa, whether it's invigorating and stimulating or whether it's going to help me relax. Right? And if you want to bring out those terpenes, vaping is the way to do it.
And terpenes give cannabis its smell, its flavor, and there's so many different kinds, and they also have a therapeutic effect medicinally. And they can be found a lot in foods, fruits, vegetables, essential oils, and other botanicals besides cannabis.
Did you have a question?
Me? I do. I spoke to you earlier, and I'm interested in, I'm cancer-free now, and I'd like to stay that way.
Yes.
And you suggested
A maintenance dose.
a maintenance dose of.
Yeah, and for anybody, 1 out of 3 of us is going to get cancer at some point in our lives. Honestly, it's a travesty, and cannabinoids are one of the most biologically active ways to beat cancer cells. It's still in the preclinical stages as far as how to bring it into healthcare and use it, but we help people use oils and tinctures, etc., to have a curative approach to it, as well as palliating, right? Help me sleep, help me eat, help me stop having nausea, neuropathy. CBD and CBG, THCA can really help with neuropathy. And so what we do is say, okay, now we've got that beautiful NED, no evidence of disease, right? You're cancer-free. You want to stay that way. So you do need a maintenance dose. And that is
maintenance dose. So Marta, the one that had stage 4 pancreatic cancer, she's still taking 100 milligrams of CBD a day. She does a 1-to-1 at bedtime, and she's taking beta-caryophyllene. Beta-caryophyllene is a terpene, and they're now making it in drops and capsules, and that's also having a therapeutic response for her as well. So she is continuing on her program.
It's all about CB2 agonism. So those receptor targets on the immune cells, you want to activate those, keep them nice and saturated, keep the cells spinning the right way. Okay, another question.
We have a person in our family that's just been diagnosed with some cancer, and in fact they just finished their 2 weeks of chemo yesterday, and so now he'll be stopping. But how can we introduce this to him when he's not any he doesn't really support cannabis at all. He's not kind of against it. We tried to give him some edibles, and he's a little. But I mean, how can we?
What's he afraid of? Being high?
Yeah, I think he just thinks he's going to get high.
Well, you bring him CBD. You get a good full spectrum CBD that you can get at a dispensary.
And you can send him my mother's video.
Yeah, people are surviving. They're thriving again, and you don't want it to come back. Right? You want to give him the best shot. And so just even think about it as an insurance policy, right? Even just CBD, you're not going to be high with it. You're going to start healing, and you might move better. You might have better sleep. You might be less anxious. Talk about the other intangibles, and then say, and it might keep you alive longer. Yeah. And then have him call us.
Okay.
Any other questions?
My questions are actually about your video. Really cool. Thanks for sharing. Were you medicated when you were on?
When I jumped? No.
Okay.
Just CBD only.
Okay. So
no
then,
THC.
Then would you rank what would be your recommendation for someone that uses cannabis and likes this kind of? Because imagine your heart rate is through the roof, right?
Oh, yeah. CBD, CBG, CBN. So we've got an amazing product called Trilogy. So really, you want to you don't. Because sometimes what happens when we're working with patients, if patients are taking too much THC, they become hyper-focused, right? You can hyper-focus on something that you don't want. So THC low, CBD to modulate the inflammatory response, to modulate the relaxation response, right? And to not be too, I was not high when I was
honestly,
on CBD.
Oh yes, you were.
I was high, but it was my own. So when I just think about what happened is I stimulated my own body, my own neurochemicals.
I'm sure she had anandamide, her natural endocannabinoid, floating through and causing that euphoria. But you do not want THC when you're doing anything scary.
Yeah,
and the reason why is because of the accelerated heart rate. People can throw off arrhythmias. With THC, CBD doesn't do that. Right? You can have 200 milligrams of CBD and then go take that jump and you'll be just fine. In fact, you need that to stay calm so that you'll get out of the plane. I wouldn't do it otherwise. I've never done it. But too much THC, any THC, can bring you into tachycardia and arrhythmias, and people have had a heart attack from having too much THC, absolutely. So you don't want to do anything scary with THC on board.
I have one.
Sure.
So I have implants in my gums. I have bone disease, osteoporosis. So my dentist told me I had to quit smoking cigarettes. So I did. I've been 2 weeks, I quit cold turkey, haven't had a cigarette at all. And I blame it on my not smoking.
Yeah.
Because I'm not having to. But my question is, so my dentist wants me to quit smoking cigarettes, but I still vape. Is that going to affect my gum disease?
Vaping cannabis?
Yeah.
Most likely no. If you want to be very careful after you vape, to just do a swish with some scope or something like that.
But the thing is too is the oral hygiene. So I'm thinking, is it because of the dry mouth? Because oftentimes too, a lot of patients will start using cannabis that are new because you change the oral mucosa in your mouth. You can get dry mouth.
THC causes dryness.
Get more dental caries, so more cavities. I've seen a couple of people that have smoked that sometimes their gums recede a little bit, but that's a lot of smoking. So it's just, and the thing is that you don't need to smoke that much. There's other ways, like you can utilize you can still inhale, but not as much. You can substitute with other products to get the same.
And the other thing is have some CBD on board, because CBD is anti-addictive, right? Like if you want to break any kind of addictions, CBD is addiction to shopping, addiction to whatever, right? Substances, drugs, alcohol, CBD and CBG it's proven, right? We have a lot of research on that, and so that is going to give you a better set point, so that you're not reaching for something all the time. You're just walking around, I feel good. And then the other thing is, smoking cannabis as opposed to cigarettes. You get lung cancer from smoking cigarettes. There is no lung cancer from smoking cannabis, and that has also been proven. People smoke cigarettes, they get cancer. People smoke cigarettes and cannabis, they get a little less cancer. People that just smoke cannabis, no cancer. And there's a protective, and also cannabinoids are bronchodilators. So if you're having some asthma, if you're having some tightness, you can have a little puff off your CBD, or maybe a 1-to-1, and open up the airways. And it's a relaxant, right? It's a muscle relaxant, and it's also a bronchodilator.
Yeah, one of the patients that I took care of had stage 4 lung cancer, and she actually inhaled cannabis because it actually decreased her anxiety, promoted the relaxation response, allowed her to eat, and was actually opened up her airways and allowed her to think clearer because she had better oxygen exchange. So you open up the airways, the coughing, so people are like, oh, I'm coughing. Well, it's bronchodilator. It's also helping to expectorate some of that sputum and some of the things that are stuck in the lungs. So everyone's different.
Yeah. Thank you.
I have an autistic son, and we transitioned him once he was over 21 off an antipsychotic to CBD CBN ratio, but he still had some paranoia, so it was recommended to do more of a CBD CBN and CBG folded in. Can you tell me why with the CBG?
CBG is amazing. So CBG is the I call the mother of cannabinoids. So it's where all the other cannabinoids, as the plant starts to mature, CBG is the mother of cannabinoids. And CBGs can be really, really great for inflammation, neuroinflammation. CBN is great for neuroinflammation.
Basically calming down the central nervous system.
Yeah.
Right? So we have CB2 receptors all over the place, but in the brain especially, that's where it's working on depression and cognition. CB2 activation in seniors can help with dementia, movement disorders, Parkinson's, MS, stopping tremors. So CBG, CBN, and of course CBD. So that trilogy, that blend is perfect. And then, over 21, you also might want to expose a little bit of THC in microdoses. Especially with any kind of rage, because the thing is, autism is gut, brain, endocrine, emotional, behavioral, right? And cannabinoids activate every single one of those systems back into balance like nothing else. And the antipsychotics are horrible. Obviously, they cause extreme side effects, tardive dyskinesia, weight gain, etc. And they're very unsafe. They all have black box warnings. They all can cause sudden death, and it's certainty of side effects, certainty of you're going to get worse by taking it. So why not try cannabinoids when it's going to be so much of a healthier option? And you can teach him agency. So give him a toolkit. And every autistic patient needs a toolkit. You've got your CBD, CBG, CBN, but then also vaping for when you get a crisis, and for younger kids that are self-injurious, that all go through that during puberty. A vape is a lifesaver for that parent and that child. Last question.
What's your take on CBC, and how can CBC help customers or patients?
You want to go first? You can.
So CBC is a CB2 agonist, but also it can be used for energy. It's also good for cancer. So cancer, depression, and stimulation, energy. I see CBC mixed with THC, and that's a really nice daytime blend for people that want cognition, energy, focus, etc.
Thank you.
All righty.
All righty.